10 years, a society was established that's unparalleled in human history up until this age, and any time before that as well. It's completely unparalleled. And we spoke about the many different dimensions of that, how the Prophet ﷺ was able to resolve problems and difficulties that to this age, to this time and age exist. We talked about the refugee crisis. We talked about things like the environmental crisis, hunger across the world, all of these different things. I mean, if you look at the zakah system as an example, the system of zakah in Islam, this system of zakah removes poverty. And this isn't just theory. It's not just theory. We see, like, look at the great Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, who they call him that, the fifth caliph, the fifth rightly guided caliph, he ruled for 2 years. Within that period of time, very quickly, they said that poverty was completely removed from half of the known world at the time. Half of the world that was known at the time, poverty was removed from it. There wasn't a single person who qualified for zakah. No one needed zakah. No one needed the alms, in order to. No one was below the poverty level. Because this was a fair distribution of wealth. This is what happens when there's an establishment of economic law, as an example. And the refugee crisis, this is what happens when there's an establishment of that social law. How do we look after, how do you receive people? And in every other dimension that we can think about. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, إِيَّاكُمْ وَالْأَرْضِ فَإِنَّهَا أُمُّكُمْ. Yeah, beware of the earth, because she is your mother. فَإِنَّهَا تَشْهَدْ. Yeah, فَإِنَّهَا تَشْهَدْ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ عَلَى ظَالِمِينِهَا. Yeah, that she's going to testify, that she's going to testify against those who oppressed her on the Day of Judgment. She's going to testify against those who oppressed her on the Day of Judgment. Now, this is the reality of the beauty of the prophetic way of Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. We thank Allah for placing us within the barak of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, within his teachings and his way and his light, his nur. Because really through that, we see beauty in everything. The societal establishment of Islam is something wondrous. And we see on every single possible level that the Prophet ﷺ attained perfection within that society. The way he looked after the slave class, so to speak. The way he looked after the orphans. The way he looked after the widows. The way he looked after the weak and the poor within that society. He honored them. He spent more time with the weak and the poor than he did with anybody else. Yeah, he would sit with them. He would prefer their company. He would prefer the company of people that are forgotten within society. How many leaders do we see today? How many presidents, kings, prime ministers do we see who sit with the lowest people within their society regularly and enjoy their company and openly say, I enjoy their company more so? How many of you, we don't see Boris Johnson going and sitting with, like, the crack addicts within his constituency. Yeah, we don't find him cleaning like the dirtiest toilets within his constituency, the public toilets. That's the test. That's what every politician should do to break their nafs. If they want to lose humility, you go and find public toilets within your area and clean them. This is the way. This is what the Prophet ﷺ taught us to do. We see this from all of our teachers. They all go, and when they want to break their nafs, this is what they do. To remind themselves, you're nothing. You are under the shade of God. That's all you are. Anything that you have, anything that you've gained is through his power and through his ability and through his tawfiq, his divine success, his divine assistance. Khalas. Yeah, so these types of, so he established this on a society level, and really, like, Islam on a society level is beautiful. We don't really see it in this day and age. Even to see on an individual level is mashallah. To see an individual embodiment of the Muhammadan way, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is profound. He leaves you in a state of awe and shock. One of like a dear friend of mine, he mentioned many years ago, he visited Sheikh Nadim, may preserve his secret, in Cyprus, and he said that he went into the presence of this august individual, like many regarded him as a qutb of his time, the spiritual pole of his time. And when I say many regarded him, I mean people who weren't even within his tariqah regarded him as a spiritual pole of the time. MashaAllah, like they mentioned once in Syria, many years when he was still a student, that they mentioned that one of the great awliya of Sham, one of the Abdali, said that the next man to walk into this masjid, the next man to walk in the masjid is going to be the spiritual Paul of his time, the Qutb of his time. And Shaykh Nazim walked in not long after that, with Anwar. Yeah, so he mentioned, because he met him and he goes, I shook in his presence. You know, it was an overwhelming, and this is what happens when you meet people who are embodiments of the Sunnah. We have many of them, mashallah, all over the world, in different countries, in different places. Yeah, so to see an individual is amazing. What then about society? Now, the great Ezra Pound, the poet, he said, I don't know. He says, I don't know what force came out of Arabia in the 7th century that led to 10,000 mosques in Spain. This is what he said. He says, I don't know what force was it that came out of Arabia in the 7th century that led to 10,000 mosques in Spain. But I caught a glimpse of it in the way a man walked in Tangier in 1914. I caught a little glimpse of what it means to be Muhammadan, what it means to have the secret of prophetic character, to have that place within your soul. So to see an individual is profound. It's profound. It moves the soul. It stirs the heart, and it impacts. It deeply embeds within the soul. Just to see an individual. What about society? To see on a society level is amazing. I mean, the Fakir personally, I caught a glimpse of that, the society, when we were in Tarim, particularly when we visited a place like, it's called the area where Nabi al-Hud, where the Prophet ﷺ is said to be buried. So what happens is that they go for a retreat there every year. They just went recently. They go there in Sha'ban and they go there in Muharram. So there's a good group. Like, I mean, this was a smaller one due to the restrictions that have taken place across the world. There was maybe like 300 people. But within, actually more, to be honest, maybe 600 or 700 people. But what you're seeing now is 600 or 700 people that have left and gone to a place, and it's really, they've established a prophetic community, a prophetic village. And it's amazing to see. It was a real eye-opener for the faqih. It's like you're seeing what it would have been like to have been, just because you're surrounded by nur, you're surrounded by upright people. Yeah, every individual within that group was either a scholar or a student of knowledge. Many of them had been studying for 10 plus years. You know, senior students of knowledge, and people of goodness, and people who are connected to the religion, who really have knowledge of the religion. They're practicing the religion, and they have knowledge and understanding. So to live within that, you suddenly become immersed, and you start to see Islam on a society level, the way people interact with each other, the brotherhood, the camaraderie, yeah, the help and the assistance, the worship, the direction, the focus, directedness, yeah, that people are completely, as a whole, they're directed towards Allah, collectively directed towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's profound to see. It really is profound to see. So when you have that togetherness, and even the way it's set up, you have gatherings morning and night, and in between, visitations, social gatherings. Every night after Isha, we'd have like a gathering, and then after that, people, there'd be like, there was a huge tent that was put up, and people would, you know, there'd be like festivities throughout the night. People who wanted to stay would stay. They'd have tea. They'd watch different entertainment. You know, every single night it was like this. People could go home and go to sleep early if they wanted to. You know, it was there. It was open, and people were having a good time. And you were seeing the different dimensions of a prophetic society open before your eyes. And really, because one of the brothers I was rooming with, there was a group of us who were sharing. One of the brothers, like a new Muslim brother, he made a really profound point. He said that because we were talking about this whole issue of like non-Muslims, who are living in these sorts of lands, and how they don't have Islam explained to them. They don't see Islam. So then there's a difference of opinion amongst the ulama about will they even be punished in the akhirah. So Imam al-Ghazali's opinion, Imam al-Ghazali said that somebody who Islam is presented to him in a distorted way, that person is saved. He's from the Najun. He's not somebody who's cast into hellfire. He's saved because Islam wasn't given to him in a real way. And he was saying, so we were having this conversation about this issue. There's differences on that. And he said that, you know, if people could see this, it really just struck me. He said, people could see this, Masha, then they'd have no excuse because it's there, it's beautiful. You're seeing Islam in its magnificence. right there. And that's the power of seeing Islam on a societal level. It's something profound, seeing Islam on a societal level. It really is. And this is what we need. And this is really, like, you want to talk about successful da'wah in these countries where we are now. Successful da'wah in these countries is to show how Islam works on a communal level. Even to show on a family level is powerful. Now, one of the students there, Sidi Musa Penfan, was quite a senior student that's been there for many years. He said that the reason he became Muslim, he said he visited like a family. He visited like a Muslim family. And he goes, it was beautiful to see. There was maybe like 3 generations within that, different people. He goes, they would just feed me. And just seeing all like the network, the family and the support and the love that they had, that just struck him. Yeah, and many others have said that this is one of the things that attracted them towards Islam, that they saw that the family structure has been maintained. And there's a collectiveness, there's some level of community there. People meet in the masjid regularly and they love and interact with each other for the sake of Allah. So if you want to really be successful in that da'wah approach in this country, then if you could just show that, you could just show how marriages can be successful. You can show how children can be raised well. You can show how neighborhoods can look out for each other. You can show how the poor and the weak can be taken care of. You can show how economic justice should work, how wealth should be distributed. You can show how leaders should be, true leadership. Yeah, all these things. Now, of course, many of the things, no doubt, are lacking within the Muslim community right now. But if these could be overcome and they weren't lacking, then we would see, people would see tremendous change. People would see tremendous change, and you would see people wanting to enter Islam. One of the things that they mentioned in Liverpool, they have like the nursery there in Liverpool, is that there was a Jewish family that started sending their child to the nursery because they recognized the excellence of like the way they were being taught and the traditional methods that were being used with itqan, with perfection. Yeah, this is what we see. Like, it's interesting. You see this if you look at the Catholics and the Protestants. We saw this in the 19th century. In the 19th century in America, the educational, it's very interesting what happened, subhanAllah, is that in the 19th century, they forced Americans to send their children to school. And they refused. They were like, listen, we are sovereign people. We have the right to raise our children. We raise them how we want to raise them. And literally, there were children, parents were held at gunpoint, and their children were taken and forced into school. That's how independent they were. Now we just give it all up. Oh, take my child and teach him whatever shaitanic stuff you want. Put him in front of a shaitan, it's fine. He'll twist and destroy him. And we don't even think about it. We just put him into the school system, Muslim and non-Muslim alike. Yeah, there's a very small percentage of people who are now homeschooling. Yeah, most people just let it go and just chuck their children in with the devil. Yeah, or at best they put him in a Muslim school that's not really Muslim. I mean, they say the Fatiha at the start, and that's the end of their Muslimness. Yeah, so here you have this, you have the Catholics and the Protestants. Now what happens is the Catholic schools, mashallah, they're based on like traditional teaching methods and they really excel. They produce great minds, the likes of Thoreau and Emerson, the last of the great intellectuals within American history. Yeah, they produce them. The Protestants start sending all their kids to the Catholic schools because they recognize the academic excellence, the academic brilliance of these schools, and that they're teaching logic, they're teaching rhetoric, they're teaching grammar, they're teaching the instrumental, the liberal arts that go beyond that, the 7 liberal arts, and they're teaching them well. So they start sending that. This is what happens when people see perfection. They start engaging within that perfection. And so this is really like, when you see on a society level, it's very powerful and profound. When people see that really, subhanAllah, people want, if you want to see an advert of homeschooling, there's a class that I teach. And there's only 3 children in the class. It's called like the Light Ages. It's a class on Islamic history. And 2 of those children are homeschooled. And subhanAllah, if you want to, people want to see, they're both 10 years old. You want to see what 10 years of homeschooling does? Just look at those children. They're very, very, I teach a lot of children. The Fiqh leader, I teach a lot of children, and I've been teaching children for the last 15 years of all different types. I've taught children that were from working class backgrounds, middle class, upper class, different parts of the country. I used to teach in Nottingham, and obviously I've been in Lancashire, I've taught in Manchester. Yeah, I've taught, and then when I was abroad, we taught people from all over the world, Australians, Canadians, people from all over the UK. whatever you can think of America. Because I spend a lot of time teaching, and these two children will be in complete homeschool. They stand apart, far apart. There's other children that are more intelligent than them, but the level of thinking and creativity is very, you don't see that other than in children that have been invested in and that haven't had their creativity squashed by a school system that's really just destroying creativity. And that's been recognized now. It's been recognized all over the world. This is not up for dispute. The problem is that it's just difficult to homeschool. That's the issue. No one's going to deny that homeschooling is better or that normal schooling is. No one's going to deny it. Everyone's going to accept openly that homeschooling is a better way. It's just difficult. Yeah, so you see, this is an advocation. Like we see these two children, mashallah. Yeah, and we hope that Allah can protect them and raise other children like them. Because we need leadership within our community. Yeah, we need people that can think creatively outside of the box to deal with the challenges that we now face. Yeah, and to have true and supreme intelligence. Okay, so he mentions this. Then he's talking now about the struggle. He says these glorious 10 years. وَلَكِنْ قَمِنْ بَرَكَاتْ فِيهَا. Look at the blessings of these 10 years in Medina. The 10 years the Prophet ﷺ stayed in Medina and he established a prophetic society in these glorious, glorious, glorious 10 years. These magnificent 10 years. لا زلنا نستقي منها ونشرب من ماء هذه العشر سنوات. Even to this day, we're drinking from the water, from this blessing of these 10 years. Yeah, we're still drinking, we're still taking from the blessings of these 10 years. Unmatched. That times would pass with the Prophet ﷺ when he wouldn't have enough food to feed guests. In any of his households, he wouldn't have enough food to feed. He would go around. Is there food? Is there? No. There wasn't any food to feed guests. وهو الذي يقول لبنته ما جبت من بيت مضر ولا وبر ولا حجر إلا ودخلوا دينه أبيك بذل ذليل عز عزيز. Look at it. This is supreme confidence. Listen to this. What did he say? Alongside this, he says to his blessed daughter, Fatima Zahra al-Batul, he says, there will not remain a house on the face of the earth except that Islam will enter it. A mud brick house, a stone, any type of house you can think of. He mentions different categories of houses, except that Islam will enter this house. But either they will be humiliated because they reject Islam, or they'll be honored because of that. It's going to enter every. I mean, look at that confidence, supreme prophetic confidence. And this is what's going to pass. Why? Because every single thing the Prophet ﷺ has said has happened. Every single one, to the dot. He talks about 30 years of the Khulafa Rashidin. That's exactly 30 years. Then he talks about the age of kingship. Then he talks about the age of Jababira, the tyrants. All of these signs, every single thing that he said has passed to the exact nature of it. So the things that are to come will also pass. And this is from amongst those things that are to come. Yeah, look at the confidence of the Prophet ﷺ that he's saying that Islam is going to enter every single house. Yeah, this is the good news, the glad tidings for us. Our teacher Habib Umar al-Hafiz, he quotes this hadith excessively a lot to give people that confidence and that, because we're living in difficult times. Even in the Muslim lands now, it's very difficult. There's a lot of challenges and problems. So he gives them this comment. Don't forget that Islam will enter every single house by the words of the Sadiq al-Masduq sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yeah, so then he says, Amru qahnu bihadhi sabr, subhanallah. That he says, this command will happen. Yeah, Islam will enter every house, it will overpower everybody. Why? Because of this patience the Prophet ﷺ showed. Bihadha al-ihtimal, because of his ability to bear difficulty. The Prophet ﷺ, he took on this challenge and he moved mountains. He bore things upon his blessed back. Because he took on this challenge, because he was able to take on and bear this trust, now Islam is going to enter every single house by the words of the Sadiq al-Masduq. He tells this to his blessed daughter Fatima Zahra, that there's going to come a time where Islam will enter every single house. So now that doesn't happen just like that. That happens because the Prophet ﷺ takes on the challenge and he's willing to bear and undergo immense difficulty. وَقَالَ لِأَبِي بَكْرِ وَعُمَرٍ, subhanallah. Now he's seeing this. He gives you glimpses. into the prophetic life. This was an individual who underwent immense difficulty. For these realities to take place, Islam is not going to spread across the world by nothing. It's going to spread into every single house because of the sidq, because of the sincerity, because of the sabr, because of the patience of this individual. One man who changed the world. The one man who has transformed the world. Completely transformed. Where was he? He was born in the 7th century in Arabia, in a place of no knowledge, no culture, no refinement, no progress. No open mobility, nothing. There was nothing there. And from there, the darkest of places, within a dark world, emerged a light that's now spread everywhere and will continue to spread. Mark my words, don't mark my words, mark the words of the Rasul. Mark the words of the Rasul. You're going to see this manifest in front of your own eyes. Like the Sahaba did. Said Abdullah ibn Umar. Said Abdullah ibn Umar, he said that because there was one day, the Prophet ﷺ, he prayed the Fajr prayer because he stood up after Fajr and he started to talk. And he said he told us about all of the signs of the end of time. And he said he went all the way to Dhuhr, then he prayed Dhuhr, then he carried on. He spoke from Fajr all the way to the end of the day, only stopping for the prayer, and said he told us everything that would happen. And he said many of the things we'd forgotten them, but then when they happened before our eyes, we remember. And he said it's like you meet somebody. He goes, imagine you meet somebody and you see their face, and then you don't see them for 10 years. Yeah, and then you see someone who looks like them, and then you remember that person. It happens, isn't it? That you think, oh yeah, that looks like someone we haven't thought about, because that's what it's like. You see it happen before you. Oh yes, he spoke about it. The Rasul spoke about it on that day. Yeah, so these things they're going to manifest before our very eyes. But why are they going to happen? Why are they going to happen? Because of this individual, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the difficulty that he underwent. And look at this here. It says, so he says to his blessed companions, Umar wa Abu Bakr, Abu Bakr wa Umar radiyallahu anhuma, ما الذي أخرجكما؟ قال الجوع قال قد أخرجني الذي أخرجكما. This beautiful story where the Prophet ﷺ in Madinah al-Munawwara, he's in immense pain of hunger, immense pain. He's so hungry that he can't stay within his house. He has to leave his house. I mean, like, wow, why is he undergoing that? People will give him food, they'll give their lives for him. They're taking wounds, arrows, lance wounds, sword wounds for him. And there's wealth within at that time. There's wealth. They've conquered Mecca. There's wealth. They've got wealth, but he chooses to undergo immense hunger. He's got to leave his house in the middle of the night, and then he's walking at a strange time. There was an informal curfew in Medina. People really wouldn't leave after Isha. You know, it wasn't like it wasn't like a COVID curfew. Yeah, but people would generally follow that within Medina to Munawwara. People, so it's a strange time. He's leaving, he's walking, and then he sees Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, and he asks him, "Why did you leave your house?" And he said, "I left my house. I left my house so I could gaze upon the face of the Messenger of Allah, and so that I could send salams to him." And then he carries on. He's too shy. Abu said he's too shy to mention hunger. Yeah, he's got too much haiba before the Rasul to do that. And then he carries on. They say, Umar ibn al-Khattab, why have you left the house at this strange time, Ya Umar? And he says, Ya Rasulullah, I left my house I left my house in order to be able to gaze upon the face of the Rasul. How do they know he's out? Because he doesn't go out. How do they know he's out? Because there's asrar, there's secrets that lovers have amongst each other. They have intuition. They know the score. Yeah, and he says, in order to send salams upon him. I left my house to gaze upon his face and salams upon him. And hunger. I'm hungry. I'm so hungry I can't stay in my house. I've got to leave. I mean, look at this difficulty that they underwent. Why? Why did they undergo this difficulty? This is the secret of what they did and their success. Like we studied the Shama'il, one of our teachers, he said, the greatest chapter in the Shama'il is on the Aish of the Prophet ﷺ, the way he lived and his detachment from the world. Yeah, and they mentioned all of the companions to a T. All of the companions to a T. Imam Abu Hurairah, anhu, he's rolling around in the Roda. He's rolling around in the Roda of the Prophet ﷺ. And there's a man comes to him and thinks he's gone insane. He thinks he's having like an epileptic fit or something like that. And he places his foot on his neck, just to try and still him, to calm him down. He's shaking, trying to calm him down. And he says, no, he goes, leave me. He goes, I'm not mad. I haven't gone insane. So what's wrong with you then? Because I'm hungry. He was so hungry, he couldn't control his physical limbs. He's moving around like this. And you can give many examples. Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, having to find cactus plants to eat. Utbah ibn Ghazwan and his sorties group of people, they're having a cloth. This is the Rasul, the Prophet is with them. Umar's with them, Abu Bakr's with them, Uthman's with them, Ali's with them. And they're having to find a piece of cloth just to be able to split up and put into their bodies just to quell their hunger pains. The Prophet tying stones to his stomach. And all of the others, many, many examples like this. And what does he say here? He says they did all this. He says what happens is that the Mecca is opened and they become very wealthy. The Muslims become very wealthy. And all of these delegations come and enter Islam. And they give immense money. Even the jizya comes. There's Christians that enter into Islam and they're paying like the tax of protection. They've got zakat, they've got money from many, many places. They're very rich. However, ثم مع ذلك يتوفى ودرعه مرهونة عند يهودي في دين كان قد أخذه وبعد هذه الفتوحات بحثوا في بيتي فما وجدوا شيئا من الطعام إلا شطرا من شعير. اللهم صل عليه وعلى آله وصحبه. That he says that despite this difficulty, despite these openings, despite what the Prophet ﷺ is given, he says that he dies, ﷺ, and his armor has been given, his armor has been pawned, his armor has been given in exchange for money, so he can buy barley flour for his family, just so he can buy some flour for his family. They say when the Prophet ﷺ, when he died, when he passed away, the oil on the lamp ran out just as he passed away. He's living on the edge. The oil on the lamp, in the lighting, is like a luxury for the Rasul. It's a luxury. It went out, and all that remained in his house was a little bit of barley flour. And where's that come from? That's coming. He's had to take his armor and he's had to go and exchange it, like pawn it, give it, and then get some money so he can go and buy some. But look what he's got. He's got it all. He's the king of Southern Arabia. He's got 1 million square miles within his grasp. The whole world's opened up to him. There's Christians in Najran. There's Christians in different areas that are giving jizya to the Muslims. There's people, immense wealth that's coming in now into the Muslim world, even at this early stage. And this is nothing compared to the Futuhat that are to come, of course. There's immense wealth, and yet look at the way he chooses. He chose that for himself, and he could have chosen any lifestyle. Out of the millions of different varieties of lifestyles that we see today, he could have chosen anything. This is what he chose for himself, sallallahu. This is ithar. If you understand ithar, preference of others over yourself, this is it. If you want to understand what shukr, the highest level of shukr is from the Shakir himself, sallallahu. Shukr is when the gifts Allah has given you want them to be displayed on other people. So shukr is Allah has given you gifts, because Allah gave the Rasul ﷺ gifts. But instead of taking those gifts and displaying on himself, he gives them to others, and so they can be displayed on others. Other people can eat well. Other people can have nice clothes. Other people can live a comfortable life. It's not for him. It's not for him. It's not for his elite companions, abadan. But for others, mashallah. So this is the highest level of shukr that we see from the Prophet ﷺ. Is profound. And this level of sincerity, this is the proof that you telling me now, people are going to end that the stupidity of people now, of some of these non-Muslims now, these disbelievers, they're going to say, oh, the Prophet ﷺ, he was faking it. Okay, let's just entertain this madness. If he's faking it, then why didn't he take it? A fakester, like an imposter, he would take all the money he could, as we see in this day and age of religious charlatans. How much a religious charlatan do we see now is stealing money? Who's taking money and pretending to be like an imam or a peer or a sheikh or whatever it might be. Just recently, just a couple of days ago, I was speaking with my auntie about certain individuals within a country that I'm not going to mention, where people are just using money using religion to make money. Well, I'll do dua for you, give me £200. Allah protect us. Yeah, if the religious leadership becomes that, this is problematic, isn't it? Yeah, so that, and look at the Rasul, it's all offered to him, he doesn't take anything. Now, if he wasn't true, if he wasn't sincere in his mission, if he was 100% convinced in his mission, he would have taken everything, which is what all imposters have done throughout history. He doesn't take anything. He maintains right to the end. And he's well entitled. He's more than entitled to take. All he has to do is just let people know. Just let it slip that he's living like this. This was a great secret within his, and no one knew within his life that he was living like this. No one knew, except for the people very close to him. And they were told, shh, don't tell anyone. Because if the companions found out, they would move heaven and earth to make sure that he was looked after. He didn't want that. That's not what he wanted. He wanted to stand before his Lord in a state of absolute sincerity, as someone who was completely abstained and completely detached from the world. That's what he wanted. That's how he wanted to stand. Like he says, someone asked him, why don't you take it easy? He said, look at the Ulul Azm. Look at the 5 great prophets, the ones of the past, Musa, Isa, Nuh, Ibrahim, these great ones. He said, I feel ashamed to stand before my Lord, and I didn't go through I didn't undergo the difficulty they underwent. No, I want to stand before my Lord and say, no, I went more difficulty than them. Because the most trialed of people are the prophets. Yeah, and then the ones who are like, and then the ones who are, the greater your spiritual rank, the more problems you have, the more difficulties you have to undergo. This is just a rule. This is one of the rules, divine laws Allah has placed within the universe. Yeah, the more spiritually refined you become, the more difficult your life becomes. And we see this beautifully exemplified in this life. Yeah, the Prophet Sallallahu. And so when we ask Allah for tawfiq, this is sincerity. This sincerity that these acts of sincerity that took place over 1400 years ago, they're radiating to this day, and they'll continue to radiate till the end of time. Yeah, these are people around him. These elite companions also who lived for the sake of Islam, and therefore they were able to spread this religion in the most beautiful and perfect way. We ask Allah to return us to that type of a world where we're able to see Islam on a societal level, where we're able to see Islam on a communal level, and that those who are wielding power and influence are those who deserve to wield power and influence. People who are khulafa, and that we're able to rise ourselves to become people who deserve good leadership. Do we deserve good leadership, or do we deserve what we get? We deserve what we get. So what are we? Once we rise, then we'll get leaders that we deserve. We don't put the blame on anyone else. The blame's right here. Really, the blame's right here. And it always has been and always will be. When the Mongols destroyed the Muslim world, when the Mongols entered the Muslim world, they conquered the Muslim world, what happened? The Mongols entered the Muslim world, and the Mongols said, the leader at the time, he said, I am the wrath of Allah that has descended upon you. I am the punishment of God that has descended upon you. The Muslims at the time, they said, yes, they agreed. They said, these are our failings. We failed, and as a result, we're being punished. We failed, it's our fault. Self-retrospection. This is one of the genius of someone like Martin Luther King. The genius of his leadership was that he would say that he had this, like, how do we deal with injustice? He said the third stage of his schema, of his way, the third stage was self-reflection. Am I unjust? As a community, are we unjust? Are we unfair? Before you go out and seek justice, rectify, looking inward, and you'll find your own discrepancies, your own injustices. That's what's led to it. Because the ones who are just and remain patient, Allah will give them victory. Allah will give them tamkeen fil ard. He will establish them within the earth. He will establish them within there. وَيُبَدِّلُونَهُمْ خَوْفَهُمْ amna, and then he will replace their fear with hope. And this is the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ask Allah for tawfiq to allow that. Inshallah, if there's any questions, after we've gone over beyond time, if there's any questions, inshallah, we can take questions, inshallah. People want to ask anything. Okay, inshallah. Wa sallallahu ta'ala ala sayyidina wa habibina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sallam. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.